You're now watching the training for the Georgia State Board Practical Exam for Cosmetology. Hi, I'm Dr. Beaver, Director of Education at Beaver Beauty Academy. I'm going to perform Section 1, Workstation Setup and Setup of Materials for Client 1. Okay, so the examiner has read the instructions and it's time to go in your bag to get your materials. So of course you can't sanitize your hands at this point because you have no materials, so you go right into your bag, pull out what you need, and be sure to zip, snap, or close your bag. The first thing you want to do is set up your bags so that they're ready when you need them. And remember that all 3 bags, along with your kit, must remain under the table. And I like to put my trash bag closest to me because that's usually what you use the most. At this point, I'm going to remove my gloves and my cavi wipes. Make sure if you don't have cavi wipes that you do have wipes that are considered a viral side, a bacterial side, and a fungal side. It must be printed on the front of your wipes so that they can visibly see them. From there, I'm going to put my gloves on and I'm going to disinfect my workstation. Now that I've placed my gloves on, I'm going to disinfect my table. And I would like to point out that when you're at State Board, you will not have this much space. You'll have about half the size of the table that I have, and the proctors and examiners will constantly remind you, or not constantly remind you, that you need to stay on your side of the table. So keep that in mind. That means your kit and your bags and your tripod must remain on your side of the table, but I'm going to use a little bit more space today just for demonstration purposes. Okay, I'm going to dispose of this in the trash, and I'm going to get another wipe because this is something that most people forget to do or not aware of that they need to do. But you need to sanitize or disinfect each item that you remove from your kit. Okay, and these are all my general supplies. I'm going to dispose of this in the trash. Remember, nothing goes back in your kit. I'm going to put my cavi wipes over here. I'm going to sanitize my hands because the instructions were to set up for client number 1, thermal curling and hair cutting. So I've sanitized my hands. I'm going to go back in my kit to get my thermal curl materials. Okay, so I have my supplies set up, and I want to point out a couple of things to you. I've placed my end paper right next to my thermal curl so I don't forget to check the temperature. I have my mannequin draped for my thermal curl, and I have her resting on the stand. I have my hair cutting supplies, my clips, everything is ready, and at this point I'm going to sanitize my hands and step back to indicate to the examiner that I've completed this section. That concludes Setup for Client 1 and Workstation Preparation.
My name is Latandra. I am the Senior Cosmetology Instructor at BBA, Beaver Beauty Academy. I will be performing the practical exam for the Georgia State Board of Cosmetology, Section 2, Thermal Curling. So I will begin by sanitizing my hands. You always want to make sure that you sanitize. If you question whether you should sanitize or if you're sanitizing too much, sanitize anyway because you can never do it too much. Okay? I want to make sure that, well, one thing that we need to make sure you understand is that this is a cold session. The curling iron will actually not be hot. Your curling iron does have to have a cord. But it will not plug in. So you may want to go ahead and prep your mannequin and pre-curl the hair to make sure that the hair wraps around that curling iron properly for you. Okay. I also want to make sure that before I begin curling my client that I test my curling iron with an end paper to ensure that I'm not going to cause damage or burn the client's hair. So I'm just going to make sure that they visibly see me, put that end paper on that curling iron, and I can put this in my trash because I only need to test it once. So I'm going to put that in my trash. sanitize just because. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start subsectioning my client to get ready to do my iron curling. I want to take about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch subsection. You don't want the subsection too wide. And you have to remember that the tool is cool, so there won't be any heat. But I'm going to go in, click and spin. So I'm clicking and spinning my curling iron. I want to make sure that my comb is protecting the client, and I'm going to click and spin my curling iron out. I am performing 4 curls on top of the head. About a 1/2 inch subsection. And again, you want to make sure that you are clicking and spinning your curling iron the whole time. You do not want to hold the curling iron in one place. You want a continuous motion so that they know that you know not to burn the client's hair. So if you notice, I'm clicking and I'm spinning. And I'm going to keep my curling iron in motion as I create my curl. I'm going to click and spin my way out. So as you can see, I have completed my 4 curls on top of the head. I am done. What I want to do is I want to take the tools that I use and put them in the bag that says items to be disinfected. And then I'm going to sanitize my hands, and I'm going to step back from the table to indicate to the proctor that I am done. And this concludes our Section 2 thermal curling of the Georgia State Board Cosmetology practical exam. Now I'm moving forward to Section 3, which is the haircut. And what I want to do before I get started is I want to get rid of everything that had to do with thermal curling, and I want to put those items in my to be disinfected bag. So I'm going to take my end papers. I no longer need those, so I'm going to place these in the trash. Then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to sanitize my hands. As I said earlier, if you question whether or not you should sanitize, sanitize, just to be sure. Okay, so I have 35 minutes to complete this cut. So what I need to do is I need to wet her down. I can't complete a cut on dry hair. So I want to focus on wetting at the scalp to ensure that I do not have water falling all over the floor. So I wet at the scalp and I comb the water through the hair. So when you get your sectioning, there is no specific way that you have to section the hair. You do want to section the hair for control, but they will not judge so much if you use a 4-section, 5-section, 6-section, but you do want a section for control to show that you can control the hair. When you do section the hair, you do want to make sure that the ends are tucked and that you do not leave the ends exposed. So for State Board, you want to make sure that you understand that there is no specific sectioning that you have to use. You can use the sectioning that best works for you. The only thing that is important is that you make sure that the ends are tucked. You don't want to leave the ends exposed. And you also want to part out at least a 1/2 inch around the perimeter because you will be performing that portion of the cut with your razor. So I have my mannequin sectioned and she's ready for me to perform my cut. I like to make sure that my cutting line is even with my eyes. I don't want to have to bend or put myself in any type of uncomfortable position in order to cut this hair. So I'm going to lay my comb down and I'm going to adjust my mannequin just a little bit to make sure that she is right where I need her to be in order for me to easily perform this cut and not make myself look awkward. If you make yourself look awkward, you'll do things like drop the comb, or your mannequin, your cut may be uneven. you're trying to see. So you just want to make sure, now that I put my comb down and I touched my mannequin stand, I need to re-sanitize my hands. So while you are performing the cut, there will be hair dropping to the floor. You want to make sure that you leave that hair on the floor until the proctor gives you instructions to pick that hair up, okay? So as far as my perimeter, I am pulling it at a 0 degree, but I'm also following my guide because I want to make sure everything blends. So when they come and check my cut, I want to make sure that it's blended. Come back to the middle. You always want to start in the middle and work your way out. That's going to help you create a balanced haircut. And I'm just following my guide all the way around the hairline. Okay, so I created my blunt line, which is my guideline to begin my layers. Okay, so for me, I always like to work from the middle out. I'll work from the middle to the right. I'll go back to the middle and work to the left. And so what I like to do is I like to create a middle guideline. So I'll take one of these sections out. I'm going to flip my comb. See, I'm palming my shears. I'm going to flip my comb and I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch out from this section. And someone may ask, why did she flip her comb? Well, I flip my comb because when you're using an all-purpose hair cutting comb, there's 2 different sides to the teeth. As you can see, you have wider teeth here. You have more finer teeth here. These help you separate the hair and part the hair, where these will help you keep the hairs parallel to one another so that you don't have tags, or you can create a well-balanced haircut. So I am going to, my client hair is kind of drying out a little bit. I want to make sure that she stays nice and wet. So I'm going to re-wet her a little bit, and I have my guide at the bottom that I'm going to follow. And again, I also still want to make sure that I'm creating layers, so I need to do some elevation, but I want to make sure that I am creating a balanced haircut, and I don't want to cut past my second knuckle because I don't want to run the risk of cutting myself. So I am coming out 90 degree. I'm going to cut palm to palm. So if you notice throughout this haircut, I am making sure that I palm my shears. That is very important during your state board exam. They do need to make sure that you understand how to keep the client safe. So I have completed my cut, but before I put my tools where they belong, I just want to do one last check. I'm going to do this check with my shears in my hand just in case I run into any issues. I want to first check my perimeter and make sure that I didn't miss any spots, and that I don't have any tags sitting out, because the proctors will come by and just run through real quick and check your cut. So you just want to make sure that everything connects. Then I will quickly go up top to make sure that everything is even. Make sure that my top connects with my sides and that I didn't miss any strings moving through too fast. Everything looks pretty even. And I'm checking the opposite way that I cut. So I cut vertical, so I'm going to go back and check the opposite direction. My cut is complete. I'm going to put my tools up, sanitize my hands, and I am going to step back to indicate that I'm done.
I'm going to perform Section 4 of the State Board Practical Exam for Cosmetology, which is client setup and preparation for client number 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is sanitize my hands, and I just completed client number 1. So I'm going to make sure that I properly dispose of my tools and implements, and this will go in my items to be disinfected. My towel will go into my soiled linens, and I'm going to sanitize my hands, put my gloves on, and disinfect the table. Remember, when we disinfect our workstation, we need to make sure that we wipe down all of our general supplies, and we are now required to wear gloves So as a reminder, this table is oversized, and when you go to State Board, you will have about half of what we have here. So remember to wipe everything down. And also to wipe the area up under your general supplies. I'm gonna take this, put it in the trash, sanitize my hands, and I'm gonna go into my bag and get my materials for client 2. So client 2 consists of several sections involving chemical services. So one of the most important things that I want you to remember about setting up for client number 2 is being organized. So the first section for client number 2 is going to be permanent waving. So I only want you to take out your materials for permanent waving so that you don't become confused and your station does not become cluttered during client number 2. Now remember, all of the materials you have are for client number 2, and you can just place them on your station out of your way. And you're going to sanitize your hands and step back to indicate that you have finished. And this completes section 4 of the State Board Cosmetology Practical Exam.
Now we're going to move into and set up for the next aspect of the State Board exam, which will be permanent waving. Sanitize my hands. Then I will go into the bag and retrieve the items I need and set up for this service. Now I will begin setting up my station. Once I have removed all of my items for this section, I'm going to dispose of the bag in the trash. Sanitize my hands once again, and now I'm about to start working on my permanent wave section of the exam. Now I will begin my application of the perm rods. For this section we have 20 minutes to complete it. First thing I will do is sanitize my hands, remembering to keep your comb in your hand. Pick up my comb, my water to saturate. Saturating helps the end paper to stick and grab the hair when you pull it to get tension. You can always dampen each rod if it gets dry. You can book in. You can double book in, however you feel works better for you. Get the tension over direct and bring that down. Don't put tension on the front of your rod, because as that hair swells, it will break off in real life. Remembering, the section cannot be wider than the diameter of your rod. Choice of rods will be determined. You need the hair to wrap around that rod 2.5 times in order to get a good curl. So if you find that your hair is not wrapping, you need to get a smaller rod. I've completed the riding aspect of this section. Now I'm going to sanitize my hands and step back to indicate that I've completed this section and wait for further instructions. At this point, I would step back up. I would sanitize my hands again. I would get my cotton after I put my gloves on, because this is going to be the chemical aspect. I've been instructed to demonstrate saturation, so I will step back up, sanitize my hands, retrieve my base, my orange wood stick, seal my base back up. This will go in the trash And if I was doing the whole head, I would space all the way around. Sensitive around the ears. Make sure you get it on the ears, behind the ear, because the product can run sometimes and you want to make sure she is protected. Around the bottom of the nape, across the back of the neck. Then I would take my cotton. If this was a service, I would put it around her forehead, over her ears. But in this scenario, we're just going to wrap the section that we're going to saturate. And I will retrieve my solution that is labeled in English. Remove the red cap. You want to saturate top, middle, bottom of each rod. Do not touch the rods or the hair with the product, with the tip. Seal and throw into the trash. I have finished the saturation aspect, and I will step back. I've been instructed to demonstrate a test curl. I will step forward, sanitize my hands once again. When I roll this out 2.5 times, push it forward, and I should see an S-shaped curve pattern within the hair that was on the rod. Replace it back per the instructions. Step back to indicate that I've completed that section. I've been instructed to remove one rod. I step forward, sanitize my hands. I will remove one rod. They are looking for, at this point, fish hooks. So I will pull it. Don't pull your rod, roll the rod till you get to the end, and it should be a clear straight line through your paper. This will go in the trash. This will go in the items to be disinfected. I would step back to indicate that I have finished that section. After being instructed to remove the remaining rods, I will step forward, sanitize my hands, and begin removing the products off of my client. All of these products will go in the trash. The rods will go into the items to be disinfected, and the end papers as well will go into the trash. Once I've removed all the rods, I will step back to indicate that I'm finished and wait for further instructions.
I'm presenting to you Section 6 of the Georgia State Board Cosmetology Practical Exam, Strand Test and Predisposition Test. So the first thing I'm going to do is sanitize my hands, and you'll notice that I'm wearing gloves because I am going to be using chemicals during this section of the test. Previously, I completed the permanent waving. Once you complete your permanent waving, they will ask you to section your mannequin into 5 sections. Also notice that my mannequin is double draped. I have on a water resistant cape. I have a towel under the cape, and I have an additional towel for my double or my chemical drape. So when performing the predisposition test, you want to make sure that you have your alcohol pad to clean the area behind the ear. And something that my students often forget to do is to go back and dry that alcohol. So make sure you dry that area, and then you're going to take your product with a Q-tip, dispense some product, place it in a circle behind the ear, dispose of this in the trash. Once you've completed your predisposition test, you can remove the product from behind her ear, place this in the trash. Now you're ready to move on to your strand test. So I'm going to remove this clip. And this is the section that I would like to perform my strand test on. Don't forget, we're using a chemical, so you must use some base cream. And you never want to go into any of your products with your fingers. So I'm going to use my applicator brush and base the perimeter of my client. I've applied my base cream, and now I'm ready to perform my strand test. I have my subsection. get my product out. You want to make sure you fully saturate the hair with the product. And fold that foil up. Give it a second or two. Retrieve a paper towel. And you're going to remove the foil, place it in the trash. Take your water bottle. Remove that product from the hair. I'm going to remove my gloves. I'm going to place my implements and items to be disinfected. Sanitize my hands. Step back to indicate I have finished. This completes Section 6 of the Georgia State Board of Cosmetology Practical Exam, Predisposition, and Strand Test.
Hi, my name is Tamika. I'm here at BBA and I will be performing the Virgin Highlight application. First thing you want to do is you want to sanitize your hands. After you have sanitized your hands, then you actually place your gloves on. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my hair clip. Once I take out my hair clip, I'm going to actually put it in the items to be disinfected bag. Then I'm going to sanitize. All right, so I'm going to part out my first section. It's going to be about I'm going about 1 inch deep in. When you're doing your foiling section, you can either slice or weave. So I'm going to actually do a weaving technique. So my preference is to do weaving. So I'm going to actually weave on the top of this section here. Make sure when you're weaving that you're not going deep in. Some people, when they do the weaving technique, they actually go a little bit deeper into the mannequin's part. So this is going to be my section here. I'm going to take my foil. And in the instructions, it says start from the top of the section. So when I go to get my product out, I'm going to start from the top. And the reason why you should start from the top is because it actually helps you so that your product can stick to the hair and the foil can stay in place. I'm actually going to fold my foil twice so that it stays out of the client's eyes. Usually I would fold it once, but for this we want to make sure it's not in her, covering up her face. So I'm actually going to fold it twice. And then I'm going to secure my ends. And also her hair that is underneath the bottom, I'm keeping it to the side so that it's not in her face. I'm going to go ahead and start on my second section. I'm going to part out another 1 inch section, subsection. Once I have parted out that subsection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do my weaving technique at the top. The hair that's underneath, I'm actually going to lay it to the side so that it's not in the client's face. I'm going to place my foil on the comb just so it can be able to help me so that I can have a more sturdier foundation. I'm going to place that right there. Starting from the top, I'm going to go ahead and apply my product. I'm going to hold the foil. I'm going to fold it twice. You want to keep the foil out of your client's face. And so we're doing 4 total. So I have 2 more. Now, when you're doing this, you want to just make sure that when you're picking which one you do, you can slice, you can weave, you can slice on one and weave on the other. Just as long as you're keeping your product controlled, you want to make sure that you don't have the cholesterol or your stimulated product to start bleeding or get messy onto the other hair that is not in the foil. So I'm actually moving my comb out of the way. Once I have control over that section, then I no longer need the comb. All right, I'm going to sanitize my hands, and then I'm going to step back to indicate that I have finished. And this concludes the virgin highlighting section of the Georgia Cosmetology State Board exam.
Hello, my name is Latandra. I'm back again, going to be demonstrating the Cosmetology Practical Exam Section 8, which is Color Retouch for Georgia. And I'm going to start by first sanitizing my hands. I'm going to put my gloves on. I already have my client draped. She does have a chemical drape. You want to remember that you need to have a towel, cape towel, for your drape to protect the client. I have all of my tools here. The first step that I'm going to take is I need to base my client for my client protection. So I don't want to stick my finger inside of the base. So I'll be using a little applicator, wooden applicator stick, and I'm going to base around the hairline. I want to make sure I get the back of the ear. I'm going to go all around the hairline with the base and make sure that I am protecting the client. Okay. Now I can place these items in my bag, items to be disinfected. Well, this one goes into the trash. And then I'm going to sanitize my hands. After doing that, now I am ready to apply my product. So I'm going to remove my clip and begin applying my product. So I'm going to put my clip in my items to be disinfected. And again, I'm going to sanitize those hands. Okay. Now I've already based my client. I'm going to get ready to apply my product. The first thing that I want to do is I want to apply an inch of product she has an inch of new growth, as if she has an inch of new growth, but I need to outline my section first, okay? And what you want to try to refrain from doing is sticking your brush all the way inside of your product. You only want to use the amount of product that you need. That way you have a clean application and you don't have product all over the place. So I'm going to do an inch going around the outline. I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, and then when you're doing a real color, you will work from the darkest or the lightest area, depending on which one you are doing, whether it's the lighter or darker. But I'm going to start from the top of my section. I'm going to take a 1/2 inch subsection, and I'm just going to apply an inch of new growth. I'm going to do a retouch application as if she has an inch. I want to apply it on the top and the bottom. Now, look how easy that was. So now that I am done, I'm just going to pull the hair down because I'm pretty sure the proctor is going to want to come by and inspect my sections and inspect my application. Now that I am done, I can put my applicator brush into my items to be disinfected. I can remove my gloves, and those are single-use items, so they will go in the trash. So I'm going to close my product, and because I dipped in this, I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the trash as a single-use item. sanitize my hands, and then I'll step back to indicate to the proctor that I am done with my Color Retouch Section 8 portion of the Georgia practical exam.
All right, my name is Tamika. I'm at BBA. I will be demonstrating the Georgia State Board of Cosmetology Virgin Relaxer application. All right, so the instructions say you're going to actually be doing this in one of the back quadrants. So today I'm going to be doing it in the back right quadrant of the head. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you sanitize your hands. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to do subsections into my section. When you're applying your base cream, you want to make sure that you're not dipping your finger in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my applicator brush to apply my product. I'm going to go right up, down this way. And then I'm going to go across her nape with the product. All right, now that your client is based, you're going to go ahead and go into your virgin application. I'm going to start at the top of this section. I'm going to begin applying my product. As I'm applying my product, I want to make sure that I'm not going all the way to the ends of the hair. When you apply the product, you want to also make sure that you're doing both sides. So that means the front and the back. So I'm doing both sides. When you're taking your exam and you feel as though you're getting nervous, just think something happy. Think of being on the beach. Go to your happy place. Okay, so I'm going to actually place a paper towel on the top of her head just to make sure I don't get any of this product on her other sections. I'm going to go ahead and start to smooth. I have applied the product, what we call the mid shaft of the hair. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to smooth the mid shaft. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just smooth my product on both sides. And I'm going to place that on top. I'm going to take my next section. All right, so now I'm going to apply the product all the way. So once I have applied my product, I'm going to go back and I'm going to smooth with the back of my applicator brush. So you're going to actually be coming from the scalp all the way to the ends. And you're going to do it on the top as well as the bottom. Once you have finished, you will place your applicator brush into the items to be disinfected bag, and then you will take your gloves off and they will go into the trash. Once you have put them in the trash, you will sanitize your hands, and then you will step back to indicate you have finished. This concludes Part 9 of the Georgia State Board of Cosmetology Virgin Relaxer application.
I'm going to be presenting Section 10, the blood spill of the Georgia State Board of Cosmetology and Barbering Cosmetology Practical Exam. Now, the examiner has just read to me and given me the scenario. The scenario is that I've sustained a cut to my index finger. I have not contaminated my workstation, and so I just need to address the blood spill, and then I can return to my service. So I'm going to sanitize my hands and retrieve a paper towel so that I can stop the bleeding, or at least prevent it from spilling all over the place. I'm going to go into my first aid kit and remove the items that I need and make sure that I close my kit. So I have the items out. I have a Band-Aid, I have more cotton, I have a finger huggy, an alcohol pad, and my gloves. So at this point, I'm going to put the glove on the hand that's not injured, and then I'm going to take my cotton swab and apply pressure to the wound. Once my blood has stopped flowing, I'm going to discard this in the trash. Notice I'm going to put this straight in the trash for two reasons. One, I don't want to put it back on my station and contaminate my area. And two, we no longer need to double bag. And make sure when you go to state board that you don't have a bag that says biohazard or anything of that nature, because a cut on your finger is not biohazard in nature. All right, I'm going to take my alcohol pad and clean the area. Then I'm going to take my bandage and apply it to the cut. Then I'm going to take my finger huggy, or if you don't have a finger huggy, you would need to put a glove on. I'm going to take this glove off, sanitize my hands, and then I'll be able to return to the service. This completes the blood spill for the Georgia State Board of Cosmetology practical exam.